Hello, everyone. All my devices are on that I have to check. I'm so glad to talk with you today. You are listening to Real Talk with Martha Novak. I am said Martha Novak, and I'm awful glad to be with you today. We have been in a series for quite a few weeks. The series being happiness as related to authenticity and how to be authentic and what the steps are. I think we've got a really good program for you today, some hard questions to answer, which are always great because who asks those hard questions but us, right? We ask very hard questions in this show sometimes to get you thinking and get all the cylinders working up there. So we're going to do that today. Let's start off with a prayer, and then we'll dive in to our show, okay? And let me move that over. There we go. So I can see your comments. I should also tell you that our guest call-in number is 347-850-1647. That's a number that'll get you on the air, so you need to know that. Well, hello, Lisa. I'm so glad that you are with us today. Those of you that are listening on Blog Talk Radio will hear me talk to some people. Thank you, sweetheart. Same to you. On Facebook Live, because on Facebook Live, which you can, by the way, access to on my website, which is marthanovak.com under radio shows. That should feed you into the live show. Let me know if it does not, because it's supposed to. And we will be answering, I'll be talking to people that write in on Facebook Live to me, because they can write to me. They'll write comments and say hello. And oh my God, that makes me feel so good. It does. It really does. I just love communicating with you. And good morning, Kat. There we are. So let's do a prayer. Get us all on the same page and launch off into what we're supposed to do today. Okay? Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in this world, we are enormously grateful. We are here today to open ourselves to the next level of egoic release for us, so that we may hand that energy to our highest selves, which is all you, and that it may change into something that is more loving and appropriate and certainly compatible with who we are as love. We thank you so much, dear God, for the opportunity to be together today and all days. And we thank you for the deep friendships that are here and now. Even those with people that we don't know. There is a connection here on the earth, an energetic web, if you will, of energies and of like souls. And we ask that we find more and more of those wonderful, dear people, and that each and every one of them support these dear listeners as they support these new friends. We thank you for all of this, dear God. We open ourselves now to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do as we open to the truth that lies in your enlightenment. We open ourselves now. We hear with our knowing as you speak to us today. And we give up knowing anything with our brains, for it is our being that knows you and communicates with you. And we open to this. We say this, knowing these things are so, and so they are. Amen. All right, kiddo keens, here we go. Launching off. So we have been talking about that authenticity is the thing that makes us truly happy. It brings us enormous peace. when you don't have to be anything for anybody. You're just you. Thank you. I like the amen quarter there. The when you are just you and there's no artificiality around it, pretense around it, fantasy around it, or anything else, when you're just you, it's a very clean state. It's not a state that would make you unhappy. On the contrary, it's a state where you're highly creative. It's a state where you produce for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons of trying to show off or have someone notice you. This is just motivated, this state of being, everything you do, and it is motivated by one line. It's the right thing to do. It may be the right thing to do for you or for somebody else or for the situation. It's just the right thing to do. That's a very, very strong place to be. And so we're talking about in these shows recently all the elements that contribute to that. The elements that help you be authentic. Now today, I do have those hard questions for you. So I'm going to ask you to go and get a pen and paper or be in front of your computer or however you can take notes pretty quickly, because I'm going to give you several questions that I actually want you to ponder. I'm going to take you through an exercise that I have taken my advanced classes through. I think if you do the exercise well, you will go far. I really mean that with all my heart. You're going to go far to release things, to see that everything was perfect, even if it hurt. Because what you think has so harmed you has created you and who you are and what you know and what you have to contribute to this world and much more. So we have to ask ourselves, certainly in some sort of philosophical way, has that really harmed, except on a level of us when we were children? The fact is, this is all about evolvement and growing and waking up and realizing more and living on deeper levels. You know, I have put a bark collar on my dog. It is a little collar that squirts citronella. And you hear him carrying it upstairs with the squirrels. My husband apparently took it off. So this is our dilemma in our household. I put it on, he takes it off. Oh well, try to ignore the dog barking in the background or whatever the line is there, right? Okay, kids. We have a call. I'm going to say again, guys, I am suspicious of this call because there isn't any hold time. So what I want to say to you is if you are calling in to listen to the show, try to call in, please, on on my website and go under radio shows to the two shows, or go under what is it? Blog Talk Radio and Facebook Live, and enter my name, Martha Novak, Novak. That should bring you to the show today. And I'm delighted that you're tuning in. If you call the number 347-850-1647, I am going to tell you that is the line to get on the air. And we have a call there that I am delighted to take. If that is somebody who wants to talk with me and wants to add something to this, I am just thrilled. However, there is a little something that I get along with the phone number, and that is what's making me suspicious that this is just a call. Now, you keep in mind, though, something. as long as we can do this, and we don't have tons of people trying to call in, which we do have once in a while, I do want you to know that you're welcome to do this if you have no computer or no phone or anything that can get you on this show. But otherwise, we we ask you to just tune in the other ways. Let's see if I can get this person on the line before we begin. Hello, I'm talking to a 519 exchange. To whom am I speaking?
Oh, hi, Martha. It's Jennifer. I'm just listening in because I can't get my computer to make any noise when I'm on the show.
Great. Not a problem, Jennifer. I just said that, and that is just fine. If you're having problems, I'd rather you tune in this way than miss the show. So good for you. Okay. Well, how are you? First of all, let me ask you that, because you're always a good friend of mine when you call in. So how are you?
I'm good. I politically, I don't know what I've been seeing so much going on about the underground pedophile rackets going on and what's happening to children around the world. And it's just, I feel like everything else has been a distraction and keeping us from, doing what's right.
I agree with you. I don't know what the answer is to that, Jennifer. When I start getting really upset about things, and I'm human like anybody else, and I meditate on it, Spirit tells me one thing, and that is that I need to do what I do really well and help where I can. That is not my world. My heart goes out to that, but I think we are something that I wrote in my book, which is I think the first line of my The Life You Want book is, "This is the age of individual consciousness." I honestly think that may be the answer. It doesn't help immediately, and God bless the first responders that are helping out there immediately in all aspects. But what I can do is be behind them and create consciousness in the individual, and certainly myself try to be more conscious. It's the only thing I know to do. That's not, I wouldn't know how to help that. I can pray for that. I can hold it up in those things I do. But I understand, Jennifer, but I pull you back to say, unless that is your field specifically, work on yourself, get very conscious, create a conscious community around you, and let's certainly vote for politicians as we go through who have that platform, and others that we are compatible with, and so on. That's all I know to do. It is about, I do believe, seriously, now this may fly in the face of some people, but I do believe that all people choose the souls they come into and choose the circumstances for a reason. I've seen dear friends of mine live and die, and it makes absolutely no sense at all given what they know when they die, because they've made sometimes some very bad decisions, and you go, what's with that? I lost a friend 3 years ago, and she literally drank herself to death, but she could have taught any part of this material. And we had some very frank talks, and she said she didn't quite understand it herself, but it was something she had to do, something she had to go through. And her soul, her physical experience as well, and she had to learn something from it. And you can't argue with that, can you? So it's like, okay, then I love you, and I will support you, and I'll be with you, and I'll, I'm here, but I understand that. That's just nothing you can argue with. So I don't know, and every case is different. And, as I say, you have to sit back and watch all this and go, where can I actually help and where can I not? Certainly we can help by contributions to organizations that we know are sincere and will help. That's always a possibility. But other than that, I think a good prayerful life is just about the best thing you can do, you know? So.
Yeah, and you know what? That's what I did end up doing last night. I did end up doing an energy clearing, healing, whatever it was that I could possibly do. But, you know, I put it out there, whatever the highest and best is for all involved. So I'm
Yes.
not privy to that, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly right. And I'm so glad you said that, darling, because I think when people think they do know, there's almost an arrogance about it. But I'm going to say, and from my viewpoint, I don't think anybody has the whole picture. Only God has the whole picture, and the God in all of us. So we can help where we can, but thinking we know everything and we go in like bulls in china shops. I live in a small town, and I remember a number of years ago, this was years and years and years and years ago, and I lived in another small town at the time. There was a very famous movie star that came to that little town and literally pushed everybody around like they were rubes, which, by the way, they were not. But her assumption was that she was going to come in and just make this, I don't know what she was thinking, but it offended everybody. She never got anywhere because you don't do that. You go in and you listen and you see where everybody is and you help where you can. There are just some things that people don't want to. So I am delighted to hear you say that, Jennifer. That is certainly not a surprise to me, knowing you, and good for you. Okay. Well, I'm going to go on and teach the show, but you interject anytime you want. Okay, sweetheart?
Thank you.
All right. I want to say hi to Pat, too. Pat, you got sunburn and saddle sores for 800 miles on the back. Wait a minute. This has been truncated. I've got to see more. Let me see if I can see that while we're on the air. On the back, on my bike. Oh, my God. 800 miles on your bike? Well, I love you too, sweetheart. And I'm so glad that you're safe and well. I'm glad I didn't know that, Pat, because I would have worried about you. It's just the mother in me, okay? And Jerry, hello. I'm so glad you're watching, and wave back to you, sweetie. All right, let's go into our show today, and feel free to interrupt me anytime. I am delighted. I think that when we're talking about being authentic, we are talking about being vulnerable. And I want to talk about that word because I think that has a lot of confusion. Because of our two minds, we have the ego child's mind, the part of us that thinks like a child, even in the adult body, right? And we've got the higher self mind. Ego child's mind is very fear-based, higher self mind, very love-based. So we've got these two minds, and I think this sometimes confuses us about words like vulnerability, because vulnerability is very specific to both of those minds and very different. Let me give you an example. Let me explain further what I'm talking about. Vulnerability to the little kid and the part of you that's still the little kid, the ego child's mind, is really a scary proposition. There are words attached to that kind of vulnerability, like being hurt and being exposed and being humiliated and feeling like a fool. And it's all negative. It's all awful, right? Really terrible stuff. That's the ego child's mind for you that experienced vulnerability when we were all young, and those things happened to us, right? It was a horrible experience. We learn, though, when we cross that threshold into the higher self mind and you start working with the higher self mind, the vulnerability is actually a beautiful thing. It's the thing that gives you rapport with all life. it's also the thing, because we're all feeling the same things. We're all feeling the same things here. You know, we look different when we're feeling the same things, by the way. That's where the individual personality comes in. Animals feel much the same that we do, and they look different, they express differently. So just because everybody expresses differently, we judge that, you see, when we shouldn't, because we're all feeling the same thing, or we're trying not to feel the same thing, which means we're still feeling the same thing. Okay, hang on a second. I always do this in the middle of the show, but I get hot down here, so I'm going to turn on the air conditioning. Oi! Here we go. Yay! Love that air conditioning. Okay. So in the higher mind, vulnerability is rapport with all life. It is, by the way, the incredible, it opens the door to the incredible act of intimacy with a partner or with a best friend. Intimacy with a partner, not just being the fact that you get naked together and have sex. It is being vulnerable with all your bodies and channeling that through the physical body. That's what lovely sex is at its best, where all the fences are down. Vulnerability is being open and saying, I don't have an idea in my head, when you're doing something creative, so that God can come through and fill that vacuum with a good idea, right? There are so many things that it can offer you, not the least of which is relief. You see, we live our lives pretentiously and with images and with this and that. We try to be something we're not because we're insecure. And vulnerability is a horror in that state, because we will be exposed. And that means you have something to hide instead of the fact that you don't. And you don't. Every human being is remarkable in their ways, but we're all human. We all have the light and the dark. So what? So what? But we have to indeed grow into ourselves. And I'm wanting to put on the table that that isn't the scary word, if everybody thinks vulnerability is scary, that it seems to be. It only reflects what mind you're in. Do you understand? I hope so. Okay. One of the things I've noticed too in people's vulnerability in the ego child's mind is a lot of times they have their energies reversed. For example, they'll be very open on the outside. This had to do with, I know in my own case, my dad had a very bad temper. And so for a long time, I was open on the outside because I was always feeling the climate of the room. Could I walk in there and use a pencil sharpener in his office? Or was he having one of his fits and he would turn on me if he was? Well, I say one of his fits. He was just frustrated, you know. I had a good dad, but he let things get to him way too much. And I remember so many times in my childhood where he'd get me up at 2:00 in the morning. He was a CPA, and this was before computers, and he would have lost $1 on somebody's account. And I would have to sit there at 2:00 in the morning and read numbers to him, trying to help him find that dollar, instead of saying, I'll give you $1 if you'll let me go back to bed. I didn't have that much sense as a teeny kid. Anyway, we all came from various kinds of homes, guys, and it like doesn't matter now. As long as you get over the hurts and you are applying yourself in this moment to a better world, what difference does it make anymore? Now, you're all in the process of trying to get there, okay? But when you get there in this authenticity, I mean, it's like, okay. By the way, I want to recommend something to all of you all. It's probably one of the best books I ever read. It's a fiction book, as a matter of fact. It was called The Murmur of Bees. One of my dear associates brought that into my life. It was a magnificent book by Sofia Segovia. Men and women will enjoy this book. This is powerful. But there's a passage in there that I just could not believe. She describes a man dying, and I thought it was so beautiful, because what she so clearly shows us is the things that matter really don't matter in the end. And it was just one of the most beautiful books I ever read. I urge you to get that. It's called The Murmur of Bees, and there's a great audiobook that goes along with it too if you are into audiobooks. I like them because I do a lot of driving. All right. So if you're open on the outside, that's not a particularly good thing. That's where your mind read. That's where you're trying to sense your environment so you'll be protected. What does that mean then? That means that all your energy is going into protecting yourself instead of living your life dynamically and manifesting what you want and having the life you want. At some point, all this protection of self really needs to be balanced. Okay, now how do you balance that? Well, believe it or not, it's an energetic source to begin with, because what you should be is more closed on the outside and open on the inside. What are you open to on the inside? Well, you're certainly open to hearing God's word and all that. You've heard me describe it. It's like when you do this work, you take your telephone and you place it with an open line, off the hook. I'm talking about the old-fashioned telephones. Off the hook by your side, and it's there all the time, metaphorically. And if God has something to tell you, or your guides do, same thing, by the way, they'll call in and you hear it, right? Okay, well, that's lovely. But there's something else too, which is when you are open on the inside, you are open to all possibilities. All possibilities. By the way, the scary ones as well as the nice, wonderful, positive ones. You are open to all possibilities. You own them, and you reject these. Those aren't going to happen. They're negative. They're things that I don't want to happen, but these are the things I do want to happen. And it's a wonderful way of living your life, programming your day, and having hope and thinking positively. Okay? It's very important that you say yes to possibilities and then no, because if you say no to possibilities first, you never get around to saying yes. Isn't that interesting? Oh, good. Karen, I'm so glad to hear from you. Thank you so much, sweetheart. God bless you. Good to talk to you today. I miss you. Come see us soon. So, take me seriously about this now. If you are a closed system on the inside, there are just not a lot of possibilities that can happen to you. It's designed that way as a kid because we're afraid, all possibilities are change. But if you believe that all change is good and that God is right there in everything and that this is a natural evolvement to make you happier, which it is, then you'll go with. And it's a much better life. So what I'm wanting you all to notice this week is, are you open on the inside and closed on the outside? Or are you closed on the outside and open, are you open on the outside and closed on the inside? If you're closed on the inside, you're not creating anything. You see? And how do you reverse this? You reverse this, number one, by being aware of it. By being aware of it. First of all, we should not be just little open doors. You know, the nice thing about people in general is that we would like to think the best of everyone. It's built into us. But that without discernment is dangerous. And you've heard me mention in previous programs, I'll mention it again. This is how Ted Bundy and serial killers get away with things a lot of times. Ted Bundy, clean cut little guy he was, asked a woman to carry his books because he'd broken an arm or a leg. He was on crutches, God knows, what device he used. And she said yes. Now you cannot tell me that if these people were discerning, they would not sense something was wrong, and they should have said no. But what? They want to be nice people. They're meeting a nice person. Who are they if they turn him down, right? And then he'd take them to the car and ask them to put these things in his car, and he hit him on the back of the head, and that was that. Use your discernment, ladies and gentlemen. Discernment is a gift from God. But it goes along with all of this. You cannot be open on the outside. You've got to realize that everybody's got an agenda. Everybody does have an agenda. The people that you enjoy being with, and thank you, all of you, dear friends, for tuning into a show like this, are comfortable because our agendas match. Do you realize that? Your best friends, your agendas match. But everybody in the world does not have a matching agenda to you. So I'm not saying be suspicious and fearful. I'm saying being insightful and aware and discerning. That's really important. And that helps you be a little more closed on, in fact, it helps you be closed on the outside. Just to realize, okay, this person has an agenda. Let's see what it is. Okay. I'm getting a feeling that doesn't match me in any way, so that's all I need to know, and move away. The openness on the inside is something that really comes with you being more and more aware of yourself. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. I think sometimes that we're closed on the inside because we are so afraid. We're so afraid of ourselves. We're afraid of being exposed. We're afraid of being vulnerable. We're afraid of so much. So what if I give you an exercise in a few minutes? It's going to help you be at peace, more at peace with yourself. Okay? That's going to help you know yourself better. Because anybody that is going to write about authenticity, anybody is going to say you're going to have to be self-aware. So I'm going to give you a self-awareness exercise, okay, in just a minute. All right. The next point I want to make here is that you need to develop your sense of self in authentic ways. We all need a sense of self. So many people, though, if they are like little leaves blowing in the wind, they're not rooted in who they are. They don't know who they are. They are looking for something on the outside. They'll run from one experience to the other, one partner to the other, because there is no them here. Now, were they born without a person inside? No, that's not true. But they have buried it and they're afraid to use it. And you are eventually going to have to unearth this and use it. Interestingly enough, I know a client of mine who is really struggling with bringing herself to the fore. And so I gave her the exercise I'm about to give you all yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. In my advanced class. And she really struggled with this exercise. She had a hard time doing it. I hope you won't. I hope you'll take me seriously about doing it, because I think it is very, very important. It's going to help you be keenly self-aware. Now, before we go into that, I want to say one other thing about developing your sense of self. And that is, I think that when you have depression, it is telling you that somehow your life is off balance, that somehow you are crossing your own borders, or you're letting boundaries, or you're letting somebody else do that. It can indicate that you're not letting yourself have what you really feel, and that you are afraid to process what is down there, whether it be rage or whether it's a severe woundedness. Those things must be taken care of with a loving guide. And I do so strongly recommend that you do that. What you'll find is, and this has happened through the years, is that most, in fact, every single person I've ever worked with has not needed drugs at one point, in terms of the antidepressants and things like that. I have nothing against them. I'm all for them if you need them. As a matter of fact, it actually helps our work. It isn't that it buries things even more. It just makes you less afraid, and therefore we can get it, right? So, but there comes a time where, you know, you yourself will say, I just don't need this anymore. I just don't need this anymore. And that's when you go to your doctor and they'll wean you off of it. Everything is here to help. You understand? Everything is here to help. Well, if you have depression, it's like having, and you've heard this analogy too, but I'm going to say it again. It's like having a table filled with wonderful things that you love, and there's a blanket over it so you can't see what they are, so you can't pick up the individual things to play with it or to use it. And that seems to be what depression is, in terms of clouding the picture for us so that we can't see what we want to do. So I want you, if you find yourself in that state, to go back to when you were 12, 13, 14 years old, when puberty happened, or right afterwards. This was a very creative time. You know, you have to be a real creative teacher to teach this age group too, because wow, they got more energy than most people, right? Okay, so so if you will think of what interested you in, what you were interested in at that time, what I'm wanting you to realize is those are the things for you to develop now, to get good at that now. If you were interested in art, take some courses in that. If you were interested in dinosaurs, I want you to investigate what who's doing what research about around that, to find, you know, what jobs are available, what things are available there, and what you need to learn to make yourself available for that. Hi, Barbara. Oh, thank you. Oh, yes. That's just wonderful. I'm so glad. Come up and see us if you're that close in Blue Ridge. Give me a call later. And Ben, hello. So delighted that you are with us today. That just thrills me. Thank you, Barbara, too. All right, so here's a fabulous exercise. Now, I want to tell you, this is a very, very powerful one for several reasons. Okay, I will tell you. But oddly enough, this has nothing to do with, this exercise had nothing to do initially with personal growth and what we're about to do. It came from a book called The Emotional Craft of Fiction, and it's one of my favorite writers. I've got to tell you, his name is Donald Maass, Maass, The Emotional Craft of Fiction. He is a literary agent in New York, and he's written several books. After I read this particular book, which was my first book that I read on him, I went and ordered every single thing he'd ever written. That's how good he is in terms of a coach. He's very funny. He's very kick-ass. Yeah, he kicked mine, and I like him very, very much. So when I was reading this book, he was teaching about how to develop characters, and I said, when I was reading this isn't about how to develop characters. This is about how to develop you, and gives you a different perspective on things. So let's do this exercise. All right? Here we go. I want you to have pens, again, pen and paper, or and I'm going to want you to do the second part of this exercise by yourself, not with me. Certainly, you're welcome to write me any revelations you have. I am delighted through my website, marthanovak.com. But I just think that you need to take some time with yourself. Now, here's the rub. If you do have yourself buried and you don't want to get yourself back, you're going to slough over this exercise, because this is about going down there. That's one of the reasons I want you to read The Murmur of Bees. This woman goes more deeply into emotion than I think I have ever read. Hearing somebody go that deeply into what we have available in terms of capacity wowed me. I think it will wow you too. And I think in the very reading or hearing about that depth, something opens in us. And I do want you all to realize that. That's the reason I'm mentioning that today. And that's the reason I'm talking about this, okay? In writing, there is an emotional arc. Your character has to start here and grow to the end of the book, right? I mean, that's everything that's ever been written. Look at Judy Garland in, or whatever, her Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. She had her growth and realization, right? A lot to writing. That's certainly one of it. But you've got one of them. But you've got an arc to your life too. And we're not used to thinking about that. And I think maybe now we should. Now I'm going to ask you some questions, and then I'm going to tell you why I ask those specific questions. You're going to go, what the hell? Why is she asking this stuff? You ready? Here we go. So write down your name. Write your date of birth. Write your hometown. Name your elementary school. Name your high school. If you went to college, what was it and what was your major? What is your occupation, or what has been your occupation? When was the date of your marriage, your first marriage? Name the dates of your other marriages. Put down your current residence. Put down your religious affiliation, if any. Put down any awards or honors that you have achieved. And what are your hobbies and interests? Giving you a little more time on that one. Now, I want you to ask yourself, do we know you? If that was all anybody knew about you, would we know you? The answer is no, right? And yet that's what we mainly give people. But that's just information. That doesn't take us anywhere. That doesn't flesh you out as someone we can put our arms around and like and have as our friend. And that operates in the world with a proactivity and all the great things you are. So now, I want us to go to the second part of the exercise, realizing that that part didn't tell us anything. And if you keep presenting just that, and nothing else. You that is such a dynamic and dimensional and whole human being. You're doing a disservice. We don't know you. We want to know you. You have a right and a privilege and a value in this world. But as who you are as a whole, it's really important for you to start realizing that. Now, in the second part, I'm going to ask you questions, and I want you to write the questions down, not the answers. And I want you to go back. Obviously, nobody's going to be seeing this but you, right? You're not trying to impress anybody. This is you being honest with you. That's all it is. Okay? To show you the arc of your life so far, and I hope it continues way into the future, of course. This is pretty important stuff. And I want you to take time with these questions. You ready? When was the first time you remember being truly happy? First time in your life. Write that down. When was the first time you remember being truly happy? No barking. All right, second question. When and how did you discover that life isn't fair? When and how did you discover that life isn't fair? I want to talk to you about that for a minute because this reveals something you to you. Life isn't fair. Fairness isn't one of those things on the table that has ever been, by the way. That's an issue in the child's mind when it sees that somebody else has gotten something that they haven't gotten, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right? Life is just life. It's not fair or unfair. It's just life. But there are people with issues that are running around trying to make life fair. Sometimes they're all over the news, so just keep your eyes open. That's an issue. Instead of seeing what value that they can bring up in them and add to society, they're running around trying to make life fair. It's just not, as my mom would say, I had a cute mom. She said, the emphasis is on the wrong syllable. That's what I feel. Okay, next question. Who broke your heart? Who first broke your heart? Next question. What accomplishment proved to you that you can do anything? When did that first occur to you? What accomplishment proved to you that you could do anything? When and why did you decide you had to grow up? Most of you are over these ages, so I'm going to say, what did you learn about yourself in your 20s? relative to that, what did you change about yourself in your 30s? Or change your mind about? What's been your biggest sacrifice? What was the most romantic night of your life? Next question. Whom have you loved beyond reason? Now, the operative words here are beyond reason. This might have been somebody that wasn't particularly good for us. It might have been someone that you didn't even think about anything, you just wanted to please. It isn't necessarily a great decision we made in our lives, right? Beyond reason. We often make those beyond reasons decisions before we make the decision that is a good, reasonable decision. Whom have you loved beyond reason? Next question. What disgusts you? What disgusts you? Next question. What food can't you resist? What food can't you resist? Here's a good one. If you ran the world, what's the first thing you would change? Now, I don't want you to be the little Miss America girl saying, I bring about world peace. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what's the issue. Like Jennifer said, she was very concerned with young people being sexually taken advantage of. So if that's something that if you ran the world would be one of your first issues, then what would you do? Would you form a committee? Would you, with all of these questions, I'm looking for something specific. I don't want you to say, what's the first thing that made you truly happy? Oh, I had a wonderful childhood and my mother made me happy all the time. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for one incident. I'm looking for a story, right? Okay. Get everything very specific, including this one. If you ran the world, what's the first thing you would change? Next question. What's the biggest thing left on your bucket list? Next question. How did you find or reject God? All right, now, that's the second part. There's a third part. I want you to write this down as well, the third part. Musk goes on to say, what shapes us are not the things that happen to us, what I've been saying, but their significance to us, how we perceive them. Life lessons, revelations, changes, growing convictions. These things and more make us who we are. So my next question is, beyond what you've written in terms of the answer to these questions, who are you? What else are you? Now, let's talk. The reason this exercise is so important is to give you an idea, an overall sense of your life. What happens when consciousness opens, when you are more keen to take a chance on your authenticity and who you really are, and receive, by the way, the happiness that comes with that. Number one, yes, you're very self-aware. And number two, you're aware that you've been on a journey, that this whole thing's a journey that continues. And number three, it shows you that you are moving. Number four, have you ever been asked these questions before? No, you haven't. Probably never. That's what you're here for. You're here to ask them now. Now, if I'm keeping you up with my advanced class, and I will in terms of these exercises, what they did was that one this week. And what they're doing next week that I'll put on the table is they are to list 10 harms to them. 10 things they just didn't ever think they'd get over when they were younger or when they were a little older. 10 harms. That you list 10 harms. And then I asked them to write a paragraph on each harm about how this was not harm at all, what they got out of this, how it's changed them, what they're adding in terms of value to the world because of it. Then it's no longer harm. So what we're trying to do is take all of you to the fact that life has really been not ideal, but perfect. Your life has made you what you are. If you will just release some of these fixations and these hold of energy on these moments and unforgiveness and all this stuff that we've talked about in this class, all of a sudden you start seeing, oh my God, life is actually so much better. It's actually very, very good. And I own all this. And now, because I do, I can create something else. You can't create anything if you don't own what you got. I've said before, it's like going to the next door neighbor's garage and trying to sell things out of it. It's like it's not yours to sell, right? But when you own it, you can sell it, you can restore it, you can keep it and cherish it, you can do all sorts of things. You have that power. So let's keep going, all right? I'm going to ask you with all my heart to do those exercises in the privacy of your own heart and come up with some good ones. Just remember to be specific. If you don't want to give anything up, if you don't want to open consciousness, you'll do it half-assed, if you do it at all. And I urge you not to do that. I say again, we have a great opportunity to do what we need to do here. Let's do it. while we're together and while these questions are on the table. Moving on. I think one of the important things here is when your highest self is present, we have to open ourselves to listen to it. And the more we listen to it and the more we see the ascended information is correct, the more we will trust it. If we never give ourselves the opportunity to have that experience, I think we say we don't trust ourselves, we don't trust God. Because it's like saying, I don't trust that person across the road. Well, I've never talked to him. I've never talked to him. I don't know what kind of person he is. You got to find out who the God in you is. You are the aspect of God known as you. You also have an ego child's mind. That's what gets in the way, right? But we've got to give the other a chance. We've got to show you that it's entirely trustworthyable and usable. Okay. But I'm going to warn you about something, and that is a lot of people who have a problem with a degree of narcissism, and that's, by the way, most everybody, thinks they're already tuned in. And they think their information is absolutely right. And the information is often based on what they want. I'm thinking of one person in particular that I knew a number of years ago. And she was just automatic writing and doing all this stuff and getting really skewed information. You could not convince her that it was anything else. But it was all based on her egoic agenda, her loneliness, you see. She wouldn't listen, and she wouldn't hear, and she wouldn't understand. She was so caught up in her own fear of being alone. And she lost a lot of friends that way, which is very sad. One of the things I've always noticed, and you've heard me say this expression too, but all ascended information confirms itself. That means you got loads of information out there, darling, from the highest information down to the lowest information. I'm only talking about consciousness-wise. You got information in the highest self. You got information in the ego child's mind. You got information all over the internet that's a lie. You got it all. What do you do with that? All ascended information, that means information that comes from your God self, will have confirmation if it needs it. Okay? That's not true of the ego child's mind. There's a lot of contradictory information. Now, the odd thing is the doorway to get into the higher mind for this is something odd. This is the esoteric world we're talking about, right? Here's the door. You have to be willing to be wrong. See, all these people that think they are giving right information when they're giving false information, if it is not a deliberate Machiavellian thing to do, what they are doing is needing to be right. Don't need to be right. If you need to be right, you've already got the ego in the way. Be willing to be wrong. And just watch. Ascended truth confirms itself. Every time. Ascended truth confirms itself. It's kind of a joke among all of us that have been together for so long now. You know, I have an advanced class. We've been together for, 20 years, some of us. Really. 21 years. And so we laugh when this happens. We'll all think the same thing, or we'll all see something and have the same reaction, or we'll all feel something that is exactly the same throughout the week, and we'll all say, yeah, well, all ascended truth confirms itself. That's the truth. So The way to this is you've got to get over needing to be right. Be wrong. It's okay. So if you're willing to do that, you're automatically in the highest self where the information is right. But this can't be this self-deception and tricking yourself. It's not going to work. Got to be honest. My next point here is in the authentic self and on the way to it, you should really own new insights. I think when we first start out and we have insights, they're easily denied, dismissed, discounted. I've laughed because several of my clients and I have had very dramatic mind-altering experiences when we were younger to prove to ourselves that we have certain esoteric talents and gifts and abilities, right? And every one of us kind of went, yes, it happened, but, you know. And the interesting thing is we really should realize that, wait a minute, those are important events. Everything's an important event. We're being told we have this talent or that, or to go in that direction or this one all the time. And we tend not to do it. It's interesting because as wacky as this world is right now, and it's pretty wacky out there, my class and I have talked about everybody was warned that the world was getting this way. We were all told to start working in our homes. We were all told to get out of the stock market. We were all told to do this or that to protect ourselves more. And everybody listened, and that's great. We are aware, though, of being told, and sometimes in our lives not listening. And only by going on this path do you start honoring these insights that you have and considering them and moving on them. The Bible tells us, and I'm not a literalist. I don't hold that against me. I'm just not. But they talk about the story of Jesus and Mary and Joseph going to Bethlehem to birth the baby in the stable. It's a lovely story. There's proof now, or a deep suspicion, at least among the scientific community, that this family never left Nazareth. But so the story goes that Joseph had a dream, right? And he was motivated enough to take his family to Bethlehem. The reason the story exists is it was a prophecy that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. Now, I don't know, and that's not my business, to tell you the truth. I know what I believe about Jesus. I know what I believe about God and all of this. And if you've listened to any of these shows for any length of time, you will know what I feel too about these things. And by the way, I should put on the table that when I first started this series, gosh, I don't know how many years ago now, about 3-5 years ago. I don't remember how long I've been doing this radio show, but the first 2 or 3 radio shows that I've ever given were on God and consciousness and what I'm talking about by all this. So if you want to go back and listen to those, that might not be a bad idea if you are confused about this at all. What I was going to say about that Jesus' birth story and the nativity is that I think whether it is a true story or not, the fact is that God often works that way. You know, I have waked up sometime and just known I've had to do something. Write my last book, for example. I didn't know I was going to do that until the day all of a sudden I had to write that book. I had to write it. And there was no getting around it. It was what I was supposed to do. It wasn't in my mind. In fact, what was in my mind was, what should I write about, right? Oh no, it was there. I sat down at the computer and just one day it just started. There have been times in my life that I've had very important information given to me via a dream, via something else. Now, a dream came, I think I told you all to begin with. I was young, and I had a dream that as a young girl, I was sitting outside of my uncle's house. My uncle was just about knew everybody in the world. I would have told you back then. He was a very important doctor in the community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so he had a great big old house, and everybody was in the house except for me. And I was outside on a completely white porch, on a white bench. I was wearing white shorts and some sort of top. I don't remember it, probably white. And there was the green lawn beyond the deck. By the way, this deck didn't exist until after he sold the house and the new owners came by and put the exact deck in. Isn't that the wildest thing? I don't understand that at all. In the dream, I looked down and at my leg. I was in shorts, and there was a tick, not just on the leg, but in the leg, and he was swollen with my blood. And I was horrified. I don't like ticks and bugs in general. I'm trying to like, but especially spiders. They really freak me out. Anyway, I went over to a white bar, and there was only one thing lying on the white bar, which was a white-handled paring knife. And I came back to the bench, and I dug that knife into my flesh to leverage out the tick. As I was pulling the tick out, it broke and blood went everywhere. That's when I woke up, and I heard a voice of my guides, of my God, say, you have to go to a doctor to get the rest of this out. That was when I was quite young, and I knew exactly what that meant. It wasn't that I needed to go to a medical doctor. I needed to go to a psychologist. So I asked all my friends who they went with to, if they went to anybody, and I found one to start with. But I had to indeed leave a number of people in my time because I didn't know it at the time, but my mind was not set on emotional healing. It was set on consciousness, of which emotional healing is a part. So that dream, I acted on immediately. I had to. There have been many other times in my life that I say that, and I'll say that you should do the same. But many times we don't honor those things. We discount them instead. We don't question what mind they're coming from. Now, granted, I don't think you should act from the ego child's mind. I think we ought to clear that and get some real good clarity. But when God speaks to you, it's as if you can't do anything else. You have to perform. You have to go, and I don't mean perform on the stage. I mean perform. You have to create action. So if that's happening to you, or has, by all means do it. And by all means, consider those little moments that are just whispered to you as truth until they prove otherwise. And remember, all ascended truth confirms itself. Good. All right. My next point here is, I think so many people seek their life purpose. And guys, you can't seek your life purpose until you are clearer emotionally. There are so many, there's so many egoic child's mind issues that get in the way, you know. Oh no, I want to be a this, I want to be a that, I've got to do this. As a matter of fact, in my advanced class, I was working with one of my dear clients. I just love her to death, who said that she's been enormously agitated this week. And I said, well, let's talk about that. What is going on? And one of the exercises that I gave them was going back, because we had this another couple of years ago, but I said, go back and revisit your values. I want you to choose 3 values that are what you are and live by those principles and nothing but. Make sure that those things are in everything that you do, right? Well, one of the things she chose was her love of family, but she's got a very difficult family member right now, and she's struggling. So what we put on the table for her, and what I'm putting on the table for you, is perhaps that's fantasy. And now look, I love my family too, but it's not in my top 3. And that doesn't mean I don't adore my husband. I love my husband with all my heart. But these values don't have to do with him and what I'm creating outside myself. These values have to do with me, who I am, who you are. That has more to do with my love of beauty and my creativity and that kind of thing. Those things come from in me. Those are things that make me me. Those are things I could not live without. Not in any way. I wouldn't want to live without my husband. I love him with all my heart. But at our age, of course, one of us will be lost along the way, right? It's just the way it is. Your values should be chosen with no fantasy involved. And that's what was irritating her. Who was she, if not that? She had a fantasy she didn't want to let go of. And yet, she was being called to another value. You see? So if our minds are locked down around things, we're going to have some agitation. That's all it is. We've got to realize what's going on here and let it be all right. That doesn't mean she doesn't adore her family. That means that's not a good choice for right now. And you're going to have all the values ultimately. I mean, there isn't anybody who's ever become their highest selves that doesn't have all the values and live those, because that's who you are as a human being, right? At your potential. All right. Your life purpose, by the way, evolves. It's not something you move right into and there it is. It's just not. So all of you that had, terrific success in the beginning, that's marvelous, but your life can keep going on. It isn't over at any point. It's like you've used the energy this week. That's great. You've done everything you can do in that aspect. Now let's take the same energy and apply it somewhere else. What else do you want to do? Well, and don't be afraid to start over again. Heck, I fancied myself a writer. I've never written fiction before. But why not? That was such a relief saying, I don't know anything about this. I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to learn everything there is to learn about it, and then I'm going to rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it. And I have a professor in my head who said, I think even when I was in high school, I think this was in high school, he said to the class, if you're going to be a writer, you're not. You're a rewriter. And I have remembered that my whole life, even though I have forgotten the professor. Isn't that funny? But I remember it was a man, and I remember that voice, and it didn't mean anything until it did. And you've got things in your life like that too. Your life purpose evolves. You've got energy. You can use it any old different way. So many people that are brilliant athletes in the beginning go to seed when they're later on, right? They don't keep what they have. Now, they may not be out on the football field playing football and being the football stars they were in high school or college, but why not take that energy that is just energy and apply it to a different thing, a different sport, something you can do now, given what your body requires. Don't stop, ladies and gentlemen. It's just energy. It isn't football. Don't you understand that? And I think that we are in so much cult, personality cult, and we like to define things so specifically because it keeps us safe. We say we love football and we are football players, and then when that goes away, it's like, well, what do I do with this? So we drink too much, smoke too much, sit on the couch and never move. No, it's only always been energy. And how are you going to apply it now? At your age, in your health, what are you going to do? Guys, we have 8 minutes. Do you think I can keep going? I'll try. Your life purpose evolves. And certainly, the more you get off of the ego child's mind and those issues that block your insight into yourself and into life itself and your talents, gifts, and abilities, the more you're going to be able to see. I think it's really important to develop yourself, you know? I think it's really important to develop yourself. One of my clients, I have felt real strongly about that she should write, right? And I recommended some great grammar books, some great things. I keep feeling like she could have a lot of money as an editor. And sure, and I keep, recommending things for her, and she's gotten them all, and she's looked at them all. And then the other day, this great job came across my desk, and I shot it right to her for an editor at home. Now, whether she was ready for that or not, only she could tell. But that's the way Spirit works. You feel you have to do something, go do it. And it might reveal itself about why later on. But for God's sake, let's start trusting the energy. Let's start following that. Don't talk yourself out of anything right now. Do what is, the right thing to do. Whether it makes any rational, logical sense or not. I think it's also very important. This is the next thing. You need to find trusted others. Some people are more trustworthy than other people. I think it's really important to find trusted others. And when you do, work out any problems that come up with them. Do you realize that when something happens that we don't understand, when our feelings hurt or whatever, we run and hide? That's the little kid in us. We think, oh, we should quit the job because we see them all the time. We're ready to throw everything out, right? When really, the honorable thing to do, the thing that honors them and honors yourself and honors the situation, is to go and ask, what happened here? That's the mature thing. Do not run and hide when you find a wonderful relationship worth saving. Give them the benefit of the doubt and ask both of those things you'll use at different times. Very important. When we don't do that, we run and hide, we mind read, we misinterpret, we get all dramatic. That's where the drama comes in. But connecting genuinely is to ask. And the implication is, and even the word sometimes, that you're important enough to me. You are very important to me. And there's something here in the way. May we talk about that so we can work that out. By the way, some people can and some people can't. It's always shocking to me when I love someone and I want to tell them how much I love them and they can't take it. I remember somebody that used to be just like that, by the way. I can take it now. And I want you to be able to too. You haven't done anything wrong. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be blamed for. Stop it. You're a child of God and you deserve that kind of love. We all are. We're all making our way through treacle, molasses. Because we're making it hard for ourselves. But we're all trying. Or most of us are anyway. Certainly ones that are listening to this show are trying. There's worlds of difference between connection and attachment. I want you to move past attachment to people and go into connection to people. And what does that have to do with? It has to do with emotion and vulnerability and being who you are in front of them. And realizing that they love you too, even in that state. And you love them the same way. And that's connection, right? And again, I go back to that marvelous book, The Murmur of Bees. That shows you how deeply someone feels. A good template for all of us. Quite beautiful. I want to put one other thing on the table to you when we're talking about relationship, and that is, remember that a relationship is energy exchanged, right? Now, money is energy, time is energy, everything is energy. So it doesn't have to be whatever for whatever. It can be, my darling clients come to me and they give me money and I give them 2 hours of the best time I can possibly come up with, the clearest channel I can be for them, okay? It can be friendship for friendship. It can be listening for someone's upset. It can be love for love. It could be love because you love somebody even when they're forgetting who they are. But that has got to be reciprocated at some point, or you don't have a relationship. If a relationship is entirely one-sided and there's a giver and a taker, that's not a relationship. That's a codependence, and that's something that is attachment, not connection. And it's something that needs to be looked at. I'm going to urge you to do that. We only have 1 minute and 54 seconds left. So I'm going to say we're going to stop right here. And let's do our prayer. I'm so glad that you listened today. Thank you. Next week, we'll finish this up. We really will. And move on to the next thing. Week after next, we're giving a show on the life you want. That means how to manifest.
90 seconds.
How to manifest in a more, in a clearer, easier, and more specific way. So this is not going to be what everybody talks about, guys. This is something completely different. So do listen. It has everything to do with you having a wonderful life, right? Okay. Thank you, dear God, for all of this. We now open ourselves to release whatever it is that we can release right now, and giving all thanks to you. We say we appreciate it. We appreciate it all, and we go out to add value to this world. Thank you, Kat, and live a good life. We are nothing but your love and your value, dear God. Show us how to express it in this world, and give us all peace in doing so. We thank you so much for all of this, and we celebrate you and our lives and the joy of learning and being. Thank you, dear God. And we say this prayer in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love center guides and friends, and in the name of every person listening to the show today. Thank you. Guys, I appreciate it so much if you get the word around. All of you all are doing this for me, and I can't thank you enough. Please continue doing that. We really are trying to increase our audiences, so tell social media and word of mouth all about us, please. We love you. Have a wonderful week. See you next week, okay? All right. Bye-bye.